Hello, Culture Matters podcast. I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest. Before I do that, here is a quote I picked just for this episode. You can't build a reputation on what you are going to do. Henry Ford. My
Wow.
dear friend, Cuoco Black, is here. Well, first of all, over almost 10 years ago, I was standing in my bathroom apartment on the phone with this gentleman, and he was pouring wisdom into my brain, my heart. Three book recommendations that it was 10x, it was Sell or Be Sold, it was Jab, 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 Right Hook, I believe. And
Yes.
gosh, that started a journey of reading more, of audiobooks more. And what I can say about our guest is internationally considered a mentor, advisor to developers in the gym design space, in the brand development space, founder of conceptual design, something we'll unpack today. Background in design, started at 14 in his bedroom figuring things out design wise.
Mhm.
And the rest is history. So I guess we're going to unpack all this today, but a good friend of mine, and it's good to have you on.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah. Let's pronounce my name because it's interesting. It's tricky because you hear the name, but you don't catch it because it's not typically a name that you hear in English. And it's my first name is Cuoco, and
Cuoco, yeah.
it's spelled Cuoco. My grandparents came from Naples, Italy.
Wow.
So cuoco, its derivation somewhat is Italian for chef or cooking. So my first name is Cuoco and my last name is Black.
Do you think there's a foreshadow in that? Because essentially you're the cook of this melting pot of experience when it comes to the gym experience. I mean,
Yeah, that's perfect because this all goes back to my Italian DNA, and you could look back on the Renaissance, if you will, and the arts. I'm very tuned in into my cultural DNA. Actually, that's kind of funny because it segues into your project, and I'm used to saying that. So,
hmm.
I grew up in a small town in central Massachusetts, and I was always kind of an outsider in the neighborhood with the kids. Um, the kids were playing in the street and playing softball, and I'm in my house and at 14 years old, and I'm playing designer. I'm designing my room and art and decoration. Well, my mom was kind of into the arts, and so it all came to me naturally as a child, this creative inspiration, and that's how I sort of migrated into the gym design industry because I was actually a bodybuilder. I was actually, I believe, a designer. I moved out of my small little town in Massachusetts when I was 19, and I moved to New York City to get my degree because I knew I wanted to be in one of the top schools, which is the New York School of Interior Design in New York City. So I moved as a nobody, this little kid from this small town and from the country, if you will, to New York City, and I went to one of the best schools in the world for interior design, one of the top 10. I did really well there. And then when I got out, I started getting into bodybuilding and lifting weights as just a hobby,
Wow.
exercise. And then when I was lifting weights and I was in some of the gyms in New York City, this is, maybe 20 years ago or something. I was saying, wow, these gyms really are bad. The designs are really bad. And I said, why don't I just take my architectural interior design expertise and merge it with my bodybuilding and start marketing my design services to the fitness industry. And one of my first projects, I went to a trade show. One of my first projects, I found a trade show where they gym manufacturers, equipment suppliers, all
Okay.
this stuff. A trade show. I found it out. I searched it out. I went to it, and one of my first clients was Crunch in New York City.
No way.
I did the Crunch flagship gym in Union Square. It's 25,000 square feet. So that was my first project. So hey, I said, hey, that's a home run.
Were you scared? And then like,
No, not at all. I was confident in what I did. So I think scared's a good thing. You got to rise to it. So I wasn't scared. I knew the design industry. I knew I knew the design. I knew the vernacular, the language of design. I was good in college, and when I was in school, I was like one of the top guys. So it came naturally to me. Again, this goes back to the Italian. We all have our little skills. Each of us has our little skills. So I knew that. I knew the gym because I was a bodybuilder. I was a natural bodybuilder. So I was in so many gyms
Mm.
training all the time. I said, yeah. And so it kind of naturally was a natural progression to get into gym design.
What would be your advice to a listener around how to navigate that first, if they're entrepreneurial and they're going for that first big opportunity, how to not screw it up and how to get the most out of it?
Well, there's a degree of politics, and you might be in the room with people that have a lot more expertise, and I always believe in sitting back.
Mm,
But I always show my cards and my strength, and I show my confidence, and I speak out on my authority of what I believe is right. And from the very beginning, people understood my authority because I came from a place of knowledge and expertise. So from the very beginning, I was in the right lane. Now, if I was in the finance industry or I was in real estate, I would have been
mm,
out of my lane. It didn't come to me naturally. So I think the good thing is if you have to be in your wheelhouse, you have to be, my feeling is you have to be, at least for me, uh, you have to be in sort of applying skill sets that you're naturally good at. And it's funny because now I'm starting to segue into other things, fine art and furniture
oh,
design, these types of things. I'm starting to segue into that. And it comes naturally to me. It's like two other industries that I'm starting to tap into. And I feel entirely confident about going into these other side industries, which are related, but that's not the same thing.
do you think it's tied to how the depth of have you gone so deep first
Well,
in one
yeah,
sector
yeah, well,
where your client?
that's really cool because, and I'm not sure if I've answered the question for your listeners, but by going into the gym industry and being an interior designer and a bodybuilder, what had happened is all these different sort of skill sets and expertise and knowledge had to all mix together in this sort of a cocktail. And as time went on, when I first started, the language that I used to market myself and express myself, my writing and such, because when I started, it wasn't so much podcast, not that much video stuff. There was a lot less going on the
Mm,
internet. I had to learn the language, and I had to learn I had to learn what the owners needed. I had to switch from I was trying to sell, listen, I've got this great design, this beautiful design that I do, and this is and I tried to market just from creating these beautiful works of art, if you will, to how to change myself where I had to start talking the language of what the gym owners needed, which is marketplace differentiation. You have to be different than everybody else. You have to create an upscale product. You have to create something with brand assets. You have to create features that are different than the competition. You have to do different things. You had to find your own lane. So it's again, if you go back
wow.
to your first comment about Henry Ford, which was a great because I love his philosophy. Is like, what did he say? Is if I did what the public wanted, I would have made a faster horse,
Yeah, yeah,
something to
yeah.
that effect. And so I had learn the language of what the clients needed versus trying to sell my skill. I had to learn to articulate the needs of my clients and how I could help them get to the things that they wanted to do. And there's so much competition now versus when I
Mm.
started, that's even more important because there's so many gyms out there now versus when I first started that there's a lot of competition and you have to have an edge.
What are some of the ways that these developers miss the beat?
Well, what happens is the gym industry, unlike the fashion or the music industry, the gym industry, it's really behind the eight. What's the expression I'm looking for? They're really, it's an obsolete mindset.
Mm,
They continue, I've made. Let me say that I've created some angst and derision within the industry because I've risen to the top of the voice of sort of the design field that I'm in amongst
mm,
my competitors. And I've reached the top by showing and illustrating that what I had to do is I kind of analyze. I'm an academic because I study design. So I
Mm,
studied what everyone in the gym, I was looking at what my competitors were doing. And what I figured out, what was happening is there were generally two types of gyms that were being developed globally at global scale. And the two types of gyms, and where I'm going with this is how I position myself to compete against this. Is what I realized is that everyone was doing one of two things that they continue doing, that they still do, uh, which is they make gyms that look like gyms. It's the green AstroTurf. It's the Home Depot lighting. It's the stripe on the wall, graffiti. It's just stuff they've been doing for like freaking 40 years from Arnold Schwarzenegger's day, and they still keep doing it. And then so let's bring that up. So
wow.
I just described a few of the elements that you walk in the gym and you see it. It's the green AstroTurf and the Home Depot lighting. So now the big thing is color changing lighting. Everybody's doing color changing
I
lighting
see
in the
that a
gym.
lot.
It's
Yeah.
like everywhere. The other thing that everybody's doing, and where I'm leading to this, is everybody just copies everybody else. And so everybody's using what are these hexagon shaped, you know what a hexagon, I think it's 8 side or 6 side lighting fixtures. They're putting these hexagon lighting fixtures in the gyms. Everybody's doing that now. So you can go on Alibaba, or you can go on DHgate, or you can go on Amazon, and they're using these hexagon lighting fixtures in all the gyms, and everybody's copying that. So I said, okay, everybody's doing gyms that are looking like gyms, or they're doing gyms that look like the boutique hotels, like Equinox or the W Hotel. And so there's one of two styles, and then those gyms, the Equinox, the luxury, the boutique, the upscale gyms, they use wood paneling on the walls, chandeliers, tufted furniture. It's the same vernacular. What happens is you've got this whole group in doing gyms that look like gyms, using all the same design elements, just mixing it up.
Mm,
And then you got another whole lane of people that are doing gyms that look like boutique hotels. And sometimes when you put pictures of them next to each other, you can't tell which brand, who is who, and what they're selling. So when I
wow.
defined what I had to do is when I started to meet developers, I showed them this. I said, listen, you're going to build another gym that looks like a gym, and that could be a CrossFit, it could be a big box gym, an Anytime Fitness, it could be a franchise gym, any of those types of gyms, or you can do like the Equinoxes and the Soul Cycles, and that's fine for you, everybody that are doing those styles. But what if you're a gym and you say, I don't want to look like everybody else? And so what I came up is what I call my version of this is my differentiation feature. What I market from is, I always say this, and this is where I made enemies, is stop building gyms that look like gyms, and stop building gyms that look like boutique hotels, because everybody's doing one of those others, and you've got to come up with your own unique concept. And that's where I come with conceptual design. And all our gyms
Mm.
don't look like either one of those styles. They're all conceptual, really cool, really branded.
How do you see customer long term, the lifetime of the customer, the loyalty play into this?
I just did a gym outside in Peabody, Massachusetts. In about 7 months, he's almost tripled his membership.
Wow.
It's huge. So for the developers that apply this strategy lifetime, they're going to upstage competitors in their marketplace who look like gyms, that they're competing against this whole market category, this market segment of gyms that look like gyms, or gyms like boutique hotels. And so our guys are doing these gyms that are really unique. They charge more money for it. Where do their members come from? Their members are coming from these other gyms that I'm talking about, coming into this new concept, because
Mm,
everybody's got their pulse on the internet. What's cool, style, HGTV, what's new in design. And so when we create these gyms with these developers, they're outside what anybody else is doing, so the public is drawn to it. And the point is that this is a competitive marketing advantage, basically. So you're doing something that nobody else in your marketplace is doing.
Do you recall there's something with the Coke can and a Pepsi can and the same they look the same, or no, they look the same, but the taste, basically how they looked trumped even the taste.
Yeah, well,
That's
that's
the
the
power of
branding.
brand.
I can't, yeah, the power of branding is, how do you stand out in the marketplace? Those are two big brands. I'm not sure of, if I can comment as articulate on that style as much, but I do know, for example, I can quote one of my clients when I walked into his gym. This is a gym in Worcester. It's called Stronger PT. I walked into the gym owner and he had one of those gyms that look like gyms. There was you know,
Mm,
gladiator guys on the wall, and it was the Home Depot lighting, and it was the green astroturf. And when I walked into his club, he said to me, I want to be 100 years ahead of my competitors. And I was blown away because I was
wow.
expecting that I was talking to another gym guy who wanted me to decorate his gym. No, he was coming from a place, listen, I want to upstage my competitors. So we did his gym. It's called, if your listeners want to follow up or your followers want to follow up, it's called Stronger PT Personal Training in Worcester, Mass. And we did this design. It's the pink gym above me, the
Oh
reception area.
wow.
You can
Yeah,
see it up there.
that's
But we'll give
oh,
we'll give your followers my information later if they want to look at this stuff. And the gym was amazing transformation. And again, I talk about conceptual design. I said to him, Frank, his name's Frank Nash. I said, Frank, if there was a concept of what I do and what you want your gym to look like, was there like a Hollywood movie that blew you away that like you would love your gym to be inspired by? And he said, yes, the movie would be Ultraviolet. It was a dystopian science fiction film with Mila Jovovich. And so what we
wow.
did is we looked at the movie and I integrated sort of elements and themes and ideas from the movie into his gym. And when we finished, he said one of the first people who walked into his gym, a prospect had heard about the gym's makeover, and the prospect walked in and said, he goes, I feel like I'm in a spaceship. And he goes, this is amazing. And so the owner said, well, please go around, look at my competitors and compare them to our gym. And the guy says, I don't have to go anywhere else. I know this is the place that I want to be. And so this is what I'm getting
Wow.
to.
Do you think there's something uh like a level of expression that's coming through the operator because they're partaking this process with you that people are tapping into? I'm curious. There, it just seems like whoa, like you're
Yeah,
talking about. I
not
don't know if
only
you're
the
back.
operator, but also the staff, because what's happened is we've given them a product, a design.
Uh-huh.
It's again a competitive um, marketing advantage that they can use to compete against their competitors. So I'll go a little further with this story. What happens is they become empowered. They say, wow, we've got a gym. Nobody's got a gym like this. And so what
Genius.
happens is the sales staff, the salespeople that have to sell memberships also have more to work with. So the perfect example is when we opened his gym. It was in January, very cold up in Worcester, Massachusetts. I remember it was a chilly night, and it was 4 o'clock. The sun went down really early at this time of year, and his gym was jammed. Everybody was training. There were 30, 35 people on the training floor training. And I was like enthusiastic. I said, this is a good sign. So I said, let me go around the corner. There was an Anytime Fitness that was literally on the other street, like around the corner. So I drove around the corner at the same time, and I looked in the window, and there were two people on treadmills just grinding. And the guy just designed had
Holy.
35 to 40 people in their training, and they make a good penny on their membership
Would
fees.
you say that's even psychologically there's a higher level of conversion of training if the staff is bought in and they have pride around the gym,
Yes.
that energy starts flowing.
Well,
So it's
the
impacting every aspect.
the gym that I was speaking about in Peabody, Mass, that we just did, as I said, they went from 105 members. They're at 270. He's headed
Wow.
for 300 by the end of the year. So they tripled their membership. Not only that, he went from 3 personal trainers to 6 or 7
Holy
already.
cow.
So personal trainers left the other gyms and came to his gym. So, there's a
And that
powerful,
was a boutique.
yeah, it was a little small club,
That could be a
really.
monster business.
Yeah, yeah, he's turning it and he's
That could be a
already looking at
monster
what,
business.
yeah, I mean, imagine
It's amazing.
tripling your revenue
I
in
have a
just,
cultural question for you as it relates to the space. These
Mhm.
like the set this what when did bodybuilding and that start to get popularized? Like what, 70s, 80s? Is
Yeah, I think Pumping Iron and Arnold Schwarzenegger was sort of
it impacted the
the
culture?
yeah, yeah, it impacted the
Do
culture.
you think that set the at some level the consciousness of like, all right, that's what gyms are going to look like, that's what it's about, and as our general culture gets more health oriented, the gyms have to change in their look and feel. It can't just be that intimidating weight weights dumbbell place. I'm curious what your thoughts are on
Well,
that.
there are gyms that have that customer, and they will always have that customer, and there will always be the bodybuilders that want that gym.
Mm,
But so the question is, who's the target demographic? So you have to
ask that.
apply, yeah, you have to apply like if we created one of these gyms for like maybe what's call it a gold, if you will, or something of that nature, it's not their customer. So, you have to cultivate the customer, the culture of the target demographic you're going for. So the people who come to us are looking for the the consumer who is tied into the culture, being fashion or music or design. And again, this goes back to, I think we had this with the internet came the whole phase of design. House and Garden TV started introducing all of this sort of home decorating sort of uh, things on TV, and then what happened is on social media platforms, we started getting all these Instagram social media platforms that were promoting design. So what had happened is we went from the bodybuilding community out to a wider target customer.
Is that a sense you think there's a level of expectation? Then customers want to be able to show off where they work out, which is going to create more necessity for people like you in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of happening. And so the people who are staying trapped in what they're doing are always going to be left behind. It's like when Planet Fitness came on the scene and all these independent gyms didn't want to play the game. They decided to stay. We're gonna stay and we're gonna do our model. And Planet Fitness became hugely successful because they changed the model and nobody moved with them. So what's happening is
Did they
I
really
feel
change the model?
Oh yeah. Well, for the big box gyms, they
Okay.
created this whole big box gym market. And so what ended up happening, for example, Equinox came along. So they created this luxury upscale customer. So what I'm trying to do for the industry is I don't really do that many big boxes gyms, but they have been coming to me and I've been starting to talk to them. Uh, where I'm trying to move the needle
Hmm.
on the gym industry, and it's a huge task because what I'm doing is I'm trying to show everybody, okay, these are the big boxes and these are the Equinoxes, but if you're playing one of those, you're going to get buried in that. They're so big, there's so many doing it, you're going to get lost in the noise. So you've got to step above them, and you've got to do that. You've got to up your
Let
design.
me make sure I follow you correctly. That even though there may be a difference in demographic, if if we're copying even below awareness, the customer isn't seeing a value beyond. So it's a commodity, and there's going to be lower retention and less profit, ultimately less value, less experience. Like that's
Yeah,
the gist of it, is that you
yeah,
might be copying way more than you think you are.
right.
You need advisory, you need someone to guide you through this process to figure out who are you actually, who's your people that you're serving, and how do we actually deliver that. Like I want to make sure I follow you correctly.
Yeah, that's perfect because what you're saying is these other gyms becomes a commodity. What I call,
No matter what the price.
no matter what the price, you're if you're just another gym that looks like an Equinox, you're competing against other gyms that look like Equinox. I mean, where's your value?
Mm-hmm.
So, what happens is all the architects and gym designers that are out in the world, architects, designers, they don't have to be gym design architects and gym designers are designing gyms. So I'm competing against all those people. So what do? They go to a trade show, and the trade show shows, okay, these are the floors you can get, and these are lights that you can get, and these are the wallpaper you can get, and this is the furniture. So all these architects and designers go to these trade shows. They thousands all over the world, and they see these products, and they go back to their offices. And what they do is they take this product from this company, this product from this company, and they plug it in, and that's their version of a Equinox gym. It's just a little different, but it's kind of the same stuff, but a little bit different. What I call better sameness. And so that's the same thing with the big box gyms. They all do either green astroturf or do a black astroturf or a red astroturf or gray paint or black paint. And that's what you see. There's so many gyms that do black and red and gray. I'm like, where is this coming from? How many gyms are going to keep doing black and red and gray? How long are you going to keep doing that? And so that again is what I call better sameness. They go on the internet, they see these gyms, and so they'll look at that and they'll change the architects, the owners, the designers, they'll change it and put their little spin on it, but it's the same thing. It's better sameness, whether it's a boutique hotel gym or whether it's a big box gym. And so what we do is we don't do either one of those strategies. What we do is we help the owners come up with a concept, and then we create unique, what I call brand IP, intellectual property for each gym. It's differentiated.
And how like what's that process look like? What type of person isn't actually, because they're listening, and people, developers, people that want
Yeah,
to have a stake in the game, right? They're seeing these Equinoxes, these Planet Fitnesses completely crush it from a business standpoint, and they want to have their flag in the sand. So who
well, there's a
doesn't
lot of,
fit,
yeah,
you know,
go ahead.
who doesn't
Uh,
fit the type of from a developer standpoint, like it's not for them. That pursuit of unique um brand IP isn't,
right.
they'd prefer a reasonable rate of return or competing with with Equinox or whatnot.
Yeah, it's kind of a all around question here. You said, what's the process? Who's that member? Typically, I find the people who retain us are the people who are more dialed in on marketing and
Hmm.
competition and how to upstage their competitors. Because the people who don't drill down on competition, competitive advantage, brand intellectual property, and marketing are people that are doing gyms that look like gyms or gyms that look like boutique hotels. So the people that are coming to us, and our client list is growing over the years, are people who want to move away from those two extremes. And so, as I said, the industry overall keeps doing these two different versions. And so what I do is I'm sort of an outsider, off the grid developer, but more and more people are leaning into what we're saying, what we're doing.
What was it like, or what were some of the lessons for you as an artist working in other countries outside of the US? What's
Well, yeah, I've worked in Qatar for a sheikh, and I've worked in New Zealand, I've worked in Mexico, and I have other projects in development. And what we found was what I had just described. The people that came to us were developers or their agents who said, I don't want to try to do another gym that looks like Equinox. And I don't, and well, and again, let me clarify, Equinox is beautiful, it's a beautiful gym, and all these gyms that look like gyms, that's nice. But the people that are coming to us are saying, I want my own brand. I don't want to look like anyone
Is it
else.
like Starbucks is great, but I don't want to compete with them by making the same thing, but not as good?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I
Yeah.
want to make sure I
Yeah.
follow you.
But you're all offering the same products. You're offering, fitness, exercise, gym equipment, nutrition, and showers. So what I learned, one of the things you had asked, one of the things that I learned is that what I do is just a component of what the gym developer owner needs to do. So we give him the visual, the forward facing features of their brand, but it's up to them to execute on sales and training and their equipment and their marketing and their product and how they deliver fitness, the equipment, nutrition. So there are so many things that have to tie into this. And at one time, what I did design wasn't important because everybody was making gyms like Arnold Schwarzenegger's gyms. But now the market's becoming sort of mixed up with a lot of different things
There's
going
something
on.
interesting that pops out as it relates to culture. Meaning like that interaction between you and the ultraviolet, the identity of that ultraviolet
The movie.
expression.
Yeah.
Yeah. So was, the identity of the owner at some level, something of interest in, was represented symbolically in this medium. And now people, would you say like that the staff now have more of a purpose because they're bought in to the person's part of the person's vision of why they start, like there's something happening there,
Yeah,
something
there
unspoken.
yeah, there what there is, there's a let's call it, there's a heart to the gym. It's not a room that looks like another gym, or it's not another hotel looking gym. There's a story behind the brand. So there's a heart and a character and a story behind the brand. Not only that, is the designs that we're developing, for example, this gym that was inspired by ultraviolet. When you walk in, you know that you're in a special place and you're motivated. Like, this is a place that I want to work out, and the music
Wow.
is cool, the lighting is cool, the architectural design, all the features that we did makes it like an environment. Let's call it a third place after work and home. So we're creating sort of like these destination gyms that
Mm.
are inspiring and motivational to work out in. So it's kind of like it's like I follow Disney and I follow Steve Jobs and I follow Henry Ford. Their philosophies, Elon Musk, about how do you create. These are great marketing people, and that's where I'm coming from with the gyms. I'm in line with that type of mindset, that narrative when doing a gym, like Disney and Elon Musk and Henry Ford and Steve Jobs on all his products, all the iPod, for example. So what we're doing is we're attaching sort of these unique design concepts to the modality of fitness and creating these destination gym
Mm.
environments that are exciting to work out in. So going back to your question, the owner sort of is the inspiration that launches it. We execute on his idea, and the staff are drawn in, and the members who come into the space see the
Mm.
experience. They're experiential gyms.
Have you find that that actually helps the client even beyond, even more than they would have thought?
Well, in the revenue. So our clients are able, as I said, the gym in Worcester, the gym in, excuse me, in Peabody, Mass, tripled their membership in about 7 months, doubled or tripled their personal trainers. So it increased the revenue because they've got a space that people get excited to train in. A perfect example, next door to the guy in the gym, it's called KMF Strong in Peabody, Mass. Next door is a dance school. So he says, we've been next to this dance school for years. He says, nobody even came in our doors. As soon as we renovated the lobby, people that were going to go into the school stopped and opened the doors and looked in and said, what do you guys do here now? So
Wow.
just what's redoing the lobby, redesigning the lobby, attracted people to come into this space.
Yeah, you had mentioned in other shows, 80/20, Pareto's 80/20, the
80/20.
80% of the budget in 20% of the space, and that being the lobby. Can you unpack that? And
Yeah, that was part of what I learned, the language that I learned and the strategies, because I'm all about strategy. I always talk about what I do is design is beautiful and all the things we do, but everything I do is strategies.
mm,
How do we upstage the competitor? What do you have to do to be different? What are the features that we use? So I'm always thinking, how do you upstage your competitors' gyms? So we reached this point where, I was looking at a lot of my competitors, and what they'll do is they'll spend $1 zillion on marble in the lobby and expensive flooring and lighting and chandeliers in the gym and all this, like, unneeded
high
products.
cost,
I'm sorry.
high cost, but low
Yeah,
ROI
like,
because it's
yeah, right.
the
So I
same.
said, listen, yeah. So I suggested to the gym owners, really the strategy is where you really hook the member or the prospect when they walk in is the reception area. It's the first thing you see. So I said, why don't we apply the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule? And why don't we, in theory, the idea here, I'm talking about
Mark.
in theory, is we take the greatest proportion of your budget and we invest 80%. Again, in theory, in the reception area to make it so like amazing that when people walk in, like the gym in Worcester, the guy said, I feel
Yeah.
like I'm in a spaceship. Once you get them there, then it's up to the owner and the sales staff to say, well, look at not only is this, but this is what we do. And a lot of people walk in, he says, this is a gym. A lot of people say that. Is this a gym? I've never seen a gym like this before. What do you do? So the owners and the salespeople, as we were talking about, they're all bought in. He said, well, let us show you the rest of the gym. And so the rest of the gym does for the design point is the remaining part of the budget. You thread a little bit of the colors, the lighting, and the design in the rest of the gym. You don't need to spend as much money in the rest of the gym because you've already hooked them in the reception area.
It makes me think of that old adage of, you wear the shoes and the belt
Right.
and you're suited up.
Yes. Right. Same thing.
Like you have a very distinct personal brand. I mean, I remember, we've known each other 10 years now. I haven't talked in a while, but it's like, yeah, Cuoco, he's a distinct guy in my mind. It's like,
Yeah.
it makes me think of that analogy. And
Yeah.
then,
You're always sort of, you're always sort of your brand is everything about you, how people perceive you, the things you say, the things you do, how you look. And some people like Steve Jobs would walk around with sneakers and jeans on,
that was his
but
brand.
yeah, but he was a creative genius. Here's a great story. I'm going to go a little bit sideways on the branding and competitive analysis. There's a story, I don't know who wrote it, but it was about the MP3 player. You remember the MP3 player? They were the first, like
Yes.
the Walkmans, and you put music, digital music, and there were different ones. Sony was making them, the MP3 players. Uh, Motorola was one. Ericsson, all these different companies were
Wow.
making these MP3 players, and you were tethered with the headphones, and so everybody was making this. And so where I'm going to this, the analogy and the story with Steve Jobs and what I do is that Steve Jobs, they saw this marketplace, they saw this target marketplace. And so Steve Jobs with Apple developed the iPod. Remember the iPod? It was the first, they were anodized aluminum, pink, green, purple, blue, black, all these beautiful little electronic with a little dial on it. That was
Yep.
the same thing as the MP3 player, but the package, the design was gorgeous. And what happened is when that came into the marketplace, the Apple released that product, all the MP3 players that people had, the Walkmans and all those other ones, went on eBay or they went into desk drawers, and the iPod owned 70% of the marketplace within 5 years, like $75 billion.
Wow.
That's the story. So that's what I'm trying to do. Is what I'm saying is the people who are keep building the gyms that look like gyms, and people who keep building gyms that look like Equinox, even though they have their own use, those are all MP3 players. What we're doing is we're doing iPods. Our gyms are
It
iPods.
makes me think like if they're competing against Equinox, then it's catching a falling knife because they already have that mind share, and so you're just competing on price ultimately, and
Yeah, but
you're gonna lose.
yeah, you're going to compete. Yeah, yeah, you're going to when you go. And I see the people doing that. I know I don't want to say I don't want to be.
Yeah, we'll keep you,
Yeah. I
not
don't want to say.
assassinated here.
There's another brand that just came out, famous for muscle
Mm.
guys, and another brand came out, and they just copied the Equinox design. I'm saying that's not your customer. Equinox owns that market. And again, I respect Equinox and I respect all these gyms. But what I have to do is I have to position my arguments from a place from people who say, listen, I don't want to try to compete against Equinox. You can't. They're doing the hotels now, they're doing great. So they've got this great
Mm,
brand, they got the great product, they've got their IP, and then you've got all these other gyms that are doing all their, and they're all doing good. But like a lot of people that are coming to us are new players, new people coming in to the marketplace. So we tend to get the people coming into the marketplace who knows everybody's doing. They're either looking like muscle gyms or
mm.
let's call it, instead of Equinox, let's call them the boutique hotels. And again, I respect those. That's great. But my career in New York City, I was doing boutique design. I was doing
Mm.
that 20 years ago, and they're still doing it. So, how many times you're going to keep building the same gym brand and then try to compete against people? These are people who this is a developer who will build this kind of a gym that looks like another gym, and then they invest all this money. It doesn't matter either versions, and they open up in their marketplace in a year or 7 months from that. Somebody opens close by with another version of what they're
Yeah,
doing. You're like you're saying, you're competing on price. You don't
catching
have
a falling
differentiation.
knife.
Yeah. So what we're doing is we're giving developers the leverage to have a product that's different than everybody
It
else.
seems like there's a cultural interaction between you and the client, in the sense they have to be the type of person that is a visionary, but also is aware, self-aware enough to know that's not their genius zone, and they need help from someone like yourself. Like there's a connection there at some regard, and I wonder how
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
impacts the
Yeah.
culture,
Yeah.
the actual atmosphere.
Yeah, it's interesting because I tend to attract those types of people that are kind of more rebellious, who want to push against the mainstream narrative. However, what I'm finding is the gray suits are starting to come to me. The blue suits are starting to come to me.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, well, what they're seeing is there's again all this competition. The big thing now is there's this all these people doing franchise gyms, and it's like a black gym and they put a different color on the wall, like a green paint on the wall or a blue paint on the wall, and that's their branding feature. Or they'll put the hexagon lighting fixture on the ceiling. That's their design element. You're not doing anything different than what 100 other brands are doing. And so what's happening is people are starting to wake up
Hmm.
and see.
I guess what are some of the business lessons that you learned over your career that the audience, up and coming entrepreneurs, or even those that are in it, the game, but wanting, to continually reinvent themselves, what lessons would you say? Because you've been doing this some time and succeeding.
Yeah, I've been over a decade on doing this. I was in it early on, and then I took some time off, and I came back into it. I mean, if there's the business lesson is, I think what's really important is that you need to be able to write, and need to be able to communicate your arguments well against your competitors. You need to be able to be articulate
Mm,
about how you want to communicate. And that was something that took me years to learn, is how to write blog posts and arguments about what I'm trying to do. And I was fluctuating all around trying to find the right language. And the more I started studying good writers, for, Jordan Peterson,
amazing, yeah.
and you look at how every word he chooses is careful. So
Mm,
what I started to do is I did a couple of things. I studied, um, believe it or not, grammar and punctuation, how to write. All right. I think it's Princeton or Harvard has on YouTube a lot of academics who have courses on how to market yourself. So I started studying, well, how do these really uh, Ivy League university academics teach their students to write and market their products? They show them how to write, how to position yourself.
mm.
Then I studied, like I said, I studied Guy Kawasaki, do you know who Guy Kawasaki was?
Was it the tech for jobs or
Yeah,
something?
he was the tech evangelist for Steve Jobs twice, and he
Wow.
talks about design. He says design matters. And so I studied
That's
him, and I
cool.
studied Ford, and I studied Elon Musk, and I studied like Elon Musk talks about first principles. You have to have your first principles down, your
Mm.
reduce it to its a single most important element. So I studied these greats at Disney and how he marketed himself. And look at, if I'm modeling or I'm taking the lessons I Okay. So where I was going with this is I'd like to study really successful entrepreneurs in the creative realm, like design of the car from Ford and
Mm.
Disney and his destination experiences and Steve Jobs and the Apple, the products they develop. And so I guess the business lessons is and Tony Robbins used to say this too, is model success. Other people that are success, look at what they did, take what you learned from them, and apply that to yourself. So
Mm.
the internet now with YouTube has so much information to help entrepreneurs to move forward. And you got to have the fight in you. If you don't have the fight, don't go into the battle. You have to have the fight in the spirit.
And
I've gotten knocked down so many times, and I just keep getting up.
yeah, like work ethic, how important has that been?
Some nights I work on projects that my eyes gloss over because I work so hard,
Wow.
like an 18-hour day. And there's people who work longer than that, go 2, 3 days working hard. So, you have to have, you know, let's see you. Okay. You have to have that was my son. He just said goodbye. He's running out. But you have to have the bug
Mm.
in you. You have to have the bug that you want to succeed. One of the things is interesting. I'm going sideways because this is not just gym design. This is culture. Is what makes people um, have this bug, this fight. They want to prove something. They've got a chip on their shoulder. They
Mm.
want to overcome low self-esteem issues. This is something that I personally had to deal with. I grew up in a home where my dad, I love my dad. He's in heaven now. But my dad was tough, and he was always in his own way. He was a blue collar guy, and I wanted to step out of the blue collar
Mm.
world. I didn't want to work a 9 to 5, and I wanted to go out on my own. And so there was a lot of psychological trauma as a child. Is like, can you do this? Because I was always sort of like, pushed down that you can't do this. You got to do this. You got to do it this way. And so
Wow.
to come out of that mindset, I'm in a battle against myself. Is to go forward and succeed. And it's really exciting because, as I said, where I started from a small town in Springfield, Massachusetts, and like again, nothing, nobody to New York City now, even I'm recognized globally as this like
Wow.
authority. So it's like I'm in my own pitched battle always against myself to make myself better. And there's great people out there like
Wow.
Andy Frisella. Is
Oh
that
yeah.
Andy Frisella? And then Bedros, is it Caruli? How do I pronounce
I
Bedros' last
think
name?
Coolian,
Yeah,
he's
Bedros,
done
all these
big
people.
things in the
So
fitness.
I'm totally inspired by that kind of fight and that, there's a great story by Sean. What was his name? Who's the guy?
Wayland,
Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek. Is it
start
Simon?
with Y.
Yeah. No, no. He talks about the Navy SEALs and who makes it to through the SEALs. And
Jocko Willink, or
no, it's Sean.
this
Oh,
is
I just said his name. I forgot. Simon Sinek, I think his
Simon
name.
Sinek. Yeah.
Yeah, he says, who makes it through SEALs? I'm paraphrasing, and it
Okay.
says it's not the muscle guy from the gym, and it's not the head of it's not the quarterback who's always been pimping on, and it's not the head of the corporation. He says you turn and see the guy, he's like small of stature, thin, totally exhausted. What he does is he turns to the guy next to him and helps the guy next to him.
Wow.
I was like blown away. It's like, wow, there's so much on the internet that it can inspire us to move us forward. And I want to see everybody win. I want to see everybody win. But in my battle, I love battling against my competitors. I fear no one.
Do you think part of that is because what's the result is not everyone wins. It's kind of just, I don't know. It just seems meaningless. If I'm thinking of, I'm just going to take this and take that and compare this and compare that. I'm not putting the thought into it. There
Yeah.
isn't value for the customer. It just seems like that goes against your integrity, your DNA.
I talk about this all the time. I talk about this with my girlfriend about mediocrity, and I will not in any part of my life. I can't be mediocre. I mean, I need to follow through and at least try and make the effort to rise up again with myself. Again, this is a battle with myself. And so one of the things I thought that's been very successful for me, a strategy, is like I know who my competitors generally are, but I don't go and follow them, chase them all over the internet. I don't follow any of my competitors. But what happens is there's so many of my competitors that follow me, that chase me, and gym owners and
Mm.
developers that chase me all over the internet, follow me on my media platforms. I'm like, dude, don't follow me. Go find yourself. And so I don't look at what other people are doing. I stay in my lane and I develop, what I want to do. Grant Cardone talked about this when he says
Mm.
he's flying down the highway, he's passing everyone. And the metaphor being, why do you want to be like everybody else? Be you. Go for it.
Mm.
I like Grant Cardone. He has sort of that witty little sort of euphemisms he
Yeah,
creates.
that 10x idea was big back in all those years ago we met. Yeah,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
are you most excited about for 24, 25 as it comes to 26, the wellness industry, the health, the fitness industry, I guess. What do they call it now? I mean, it's evolving.
Yeah, they're trying to do wellness. Everybody looks for their angle, but you're still selling fitness and health and wellness. So what I'm excited about uh, is not AI. So everybody is AI design, and they put this, I see this AI design like they do. Some people are putting up AI gym design, and I look at the designs and I go, it just illustrates the shortcomings of AI. It
That's
just
powerful.
illustrates what's that?
I said that's powerful.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's like jumping on the bandwagon. AI is going to be the go all for all creatives, and I look at it as a no. AI will never compete against real, true creative talent that comes down from God, if you will, and creates design. There's different
Wow.
brands out there. David Barton. He does beautiful job. I
Yeah,
look at David Barton's designs, and I look at AI. You can't compete. He's just, and again, I'm happy enough to commend some of these other brands that do this, but there's not many David Bartons out there, and AI will never replace that. So I mean,
is it a
AI will help with
distraction?
other. What's that?
You think it's more of just a more distraction for opportunity for people that are really paying attention?
How do you mean? I'm not sure
Like
your
if the
question.
AI is becoming, something where people are focusing attention, then and it's not as helpful, it's kind of just wasted time.
I think it has its place, and of course, people who are promoting it are vested in it, are vested interest in it. But I believe in the human spirit more than I do in machines. So AI is a machine, basically. And again, people are going to, maybe question me on that. Yeah, but I agree. There's a place there. It's going to be really great. It's going to help a lot of people. I think there's a lot of negative things that can come out of it, but in the creative world, I don't think you can't you can't replace the human creativity.
What gym cultures would you say have blown you away, or what elements speak to that?
Um, I'm not so sure about the elements. What I do admire and I like is how they turn there's certain brands who have turned fitness into a great business model. So I like the fact that fitness has brought more health and wellness to people, especially after post-pandemic. More and more people are searching out. They realize that health and wellness is going to be a hedge against illness and disease.
Mm.
And so I think the fitness industry has a lot. I'm excited about that. I think really one of the angles that the fitness industry is missing is they're not playing up the food chain. And I think that's going to be, there's a huge place for the fitness brands that can somehow merge the right food into the mindset of the consumers.
Like
Uh,
eating?
like eating. Yeah, because there's so much bad food out there, and so many people are ill because of the poor food and the things that are being placed in the food and the GMOs and the preservatives. And it's just amazing when you go to a big box supermarket and you look at the labels on the food. I'm an organic guy. I only eat as best I can organic.
Mm,
I eat once a day. I do what's called the intermittent fasting. So I fast
wow.
for typically 23 hours a day and I eat once a day. I train 6 days a week. I'm in freaking awesome
Wow.
shape, totally healthy, never sick, but I'm aging, so I'm trying to take care of myself. And I think food is the frontier for the fitness industry if you can find a way, because they're not really linked, even
Mm,
though it's integral to the outcome. And so I think there might be some fitness brands. I don't know the model yet. Maybe the model hasn't been invented. So I think that's
mm.
an exciting, what I call blue ocean space, is a fitness brand that can bring the nutrition element. Maybe, who knows? Maybe it's gyms that have restaurants and they're the best of both.
What values would you say, that you've seen in operators, um, that had that electric energy, like that, what I'm talking about. That like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
values, like these are the values of this gym, or these are some things that stick out, like how
yeah.
it is or whatever.
Yeah, I like the gym developers um who are tuned in or really good at tuning in to who the target demographic is, and then knowing their needs, and then creating the gym brand, the product, the offering, the sales, the pitches that appeals to
All
that
around their
customer.
psyche.
Yeah, all around. Eric Levine, California Fitness, I think in Asia did a was hugely successful for selling California Fitness out in Asia. You might not know him personally, but
No.
when you listen to his story of how he went, was it Singapore? I'm not sure where it was he went to. Was it Singapore? But he went to Asia and he looked at the marketplace and he saw, it was interesting because he saw some of the gyms focusing on the bodybuilding, but everybody was wearing upscale Louis Vuitton. And so
Yeah,
he
sure.
targeted that demographic and he created like a beautiful, cool gyms that appeal to that customer. That's
Wow.
exciting to me.
So you
That's
like that, like there's like, all right, like we have to observe the demographic,
right,
the geographic, what's really going on in the marketplace,
right.
and understand their story better than they might in their own self-awareness as a customer.
Yeah,
Cater to that, and you
yeah,
do it
cater
really
to that.
fine.
Yeah, yeah, I cater to
And
that.
you're doing that. You're making the whatever it was, the what the Steve Jobs analogy was great. The track versus the I the
Oh, the MP3 player versus the iPod.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. The MP3 player would be the gym that's just slapping lipstick on a pig.
Yes.
That could really be a money sink. Tremendous, I would think, without that attention to detail, without that R&D and strategy.
Yeah. It's the strat. I like the guys that are, and I talk about this a lot. If you look at my post, you'll always see me talking about strategy and brand IP, intellectual property, marketplace positioning, brand assets, competitive analysis. Like you think I'd be talking about reds and purple lighting. I'm not talking about
Deeper
any of
than
those
that.
things. I'm talking about all these strategies to compete
Hmm.
and to create a product that upstages competitors in the marketplace. And so there's what's happening is, like I said, I'm one of the few guys that does it my way. And I'm excited because it's catching in. And remember, I'm a small guy. I have people that work for me freelance and do drawings and research and contracts and all this stuff. But I'm kind of trying to push the needle on my own against the industry that's been entrenched for 40 years or 20 years doing the same stuff. And so it's kind of exciting because I see that people are aware of sort of the argument that I'm making.
Yeah, I think it's popping, and if not now, very, very soon, especially if you think about all the people that are taking selfies in gyms. And imagine in the future, you're taking a selfie in a gym. It doesn't matter what you look like, but you're in this weird, creepy basement looking thing. You're not getting those likes. That's the first thing I'm thinking about,
Yeah.
in the future.
Yeah.
It's just not
Yeah.
going to
I
be the
mean,
same.
there's always going to be that marketplace for the people who like the boutique hotel gyms, and always that marketplace for, geez, well, we should have had some of my pictures. Maybe you can, when you
Well,
edit this, you can edit in some pictures with my conversation in the background and
how
overlay
can
those.
people very easily right now just look up some of your Instagram?
Yeah, go to Instagram and my page is Gym Designer, one word, Gym Designer,
That's
at Gym
great.
Designer. Yeah.
And they'll be able to see visuals
Oh
of
yeah, I mean, as soon as you
it's
go to
it's
my page and you
unique.
open it up, and I did it last night, and I with these young guys, and they go, those are gyms, and I was showing and you swipe my page, and it's like you don't see gyms like this anywhere.
I mean, I would say a good analogy, like the difference between a cathedral and an evangelical, whatever you would call that, and a
Right.
mosque. It's
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
clear Cuoco Black's work, and if you're working with him versus the schlep down the road that isn't, in my view.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Yeah, I mean, I word it a little differently. I try to be a little more eloquent about how I describe it. But some people don't buy it. Some people say, "No, I don't need what Cuoco does. I'll do my own thing," and that's fine. And you do what you want to do until somebody comes close to your marketplace in a year or two
Mm.
years and builds something similar to what you do, because what you're doing is what everybody else is doing. And so, that's again, for me, it's strategy.
Final word on today, as it relates to conceptual design to how the actually what I want to ask is if someone wants to interview for your services, where would they what's that process like?
Just DM me on Instagram. That's all. You can follow me and DM me, and then just I'll reach. I do it all the time, and then I could set up a Zoom meeting or a call. But I do that all the time. One of the things I wanted to emphasize, when you're looking on my Instagram page, is that I don't know if you remember the gym that I did in Boca Raton, the blue gym. Do you remember
No.
the blue gym? Yeah, we talk about inspiration. The other gym in Worcester was inspired
No.
by the gym in Worcester was
Oh,
inspired by. You know where I'm going with this.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the gym in
Years ago.
Worcester the owner was inspired by Ultraviolet, the film Ultraviolet with Mila Jovovich. The gym in Boca Raton, Florida, actually put me on the map. 2018. That was inspired by Tron, the film
Wow.
Tron Legacy. So you look at it, and you feel like you're in the Tron movie sometimes in the gym. That gym was bought, by the way, recently by Redcon, which
Well,
is a big sort of supplement company.
huh.
So that gym in Florida was inspired by Tron. The gym that we just did in Peabody, Massachusetts, the owners love the Matrix. So when you look at the gym, the digital rain, like how the
Yeah.
rain was coming down, but it was digital numbers. We've integrated that concept into the 80-20 rule in the lobby. And then we've got a red pill, blue pill in the back of the gym. So all of our gyms, most of them, the one we did a gym in New Zealand, off of Australia, and it looks like a Star Wars deck of a Star Wars spaceship.
Wow.
So it's really cool because we're doing this not for the gym owner. We're not doing it for my ego. We're doing it so when the member walks in, they have a destination experience that they want to go to. And I've had, like, I did a gym in Ohio, and I was at the grand opening, and one of the members there said to me, next to the owner, a guy says, "I don't want to leave this place. I love being in here." And so that's kind of, maybe that's the closing statement, and that's what we try to do, is create these spaces that the members want to be part of.